Well, now, one thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is less, far less, than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
Aren't you being a bit adventurous, though, because you know we're going to be able to test out your theories on the moon fairly soon?
Well, not anymore. 11 years ago, of course, it was rather taking a risk. I was considered a lunatic, of course, but by now the evidence, accumulated evidence, is already so much in my favor that I'm not taking any risks anymore. On the contrary.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and I had to play that little clip because on Friday we're going to be talking about the moon because, of course, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, diving into the NASA files, NOAA, coming up. So maybe we're going to find out a little declassification. How about that? A lot of declassification going on right now. And is the moon plasma? Is it? I don't know. We've been talking about plasmoids a lot lately with all of the orbs seen floating all over the world, with the drones that no one wants to talk about anymore. And we know that giant orbs of plasma are real. They're seen throughout the universe. We're going to talk about that a little bit on Friday. Lots of videos for you to play on Friday. We're going to talk about the moon exploration. Did we really go to the moon? Are we ever going to find out the truth? You know, there's a lot of back and forth with what really happened there. Good morning, Allison, and good morning, Annette. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about Friday. You know, let me see. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow I want to talk a little bit about health, the poisoning of our food. There's some different things I'm going to get to tomorrow as well. You know, today, Colonel Joe Adams joining us with the Washington Guard at 8 a.m. Can't wait to talk to, of course, Colonel Joe Adams, because we're going to be talking about the war on cartels today. A little bit more in depth than what I normally do. I've been touching base on it quite a bit, but things are escalating as we expected they would. We're about to see some things go down as we expected to see. So we're going to get into that, see what Colonel Joe Adams thinks about that, you know, as well as Europe. You know, I've been saying this for a while now. I'm reading between the lines. I see the writing on the wall. Europe is not our friend. They were the friend of the deep state, the friend of the Democrat regime. They are not the friend of Donald Trump. They're certainly not the friend of us conservatives. So how is that all going to play out heading into the future? I think we're going to also see, you know, some rapid answers to that question, because it's starting to play out now. You know, I see these things going on every day. The back and forth, it's very contentious right now between these European countries and Donald Trump. Even J.D. Vance is talking about it. I'm going to play a clip from him here, you know, shortly, probably after Colonel Joe Adams joins us, or maybe before. We'll see. And but primarily, I want to talk a lot about the cartels in Mexico today, because there's a lot going on there. Good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. We're going to talk about some declassifications, because we know the declassifications are coming. We're going to talk about the board that has been put together to talk about declassifications. And there's going to be a lot to learn about that. As a matter of fact, there's so much that's going to come out. We know that Donald Trump, of course, is terminating all Biden era judges. Why? Because they keep trying to stop every single thing he does. It's really crazy that Trump, he's making cuts. He's restructuring the government. There's nothing wrong with that. He's not the first president to come into office, be inaugurated, and immediately start restructuring the government. Bill Clinton did it. Bill Clinton fired 377,000 government workers within like his first month or two. 377,000 government workers were terminated by Bill Clinton. No one said a word. It wasn't even a big deal. No one even talks about it, right? But all of a sudden, we know the double-edged sword. It's Donald Trump. Oh, that's a whole different story because he's dismantling the deep state. Bill Clinton helped build the deep state. And now, of course, Donald Trump dismantling the deep state. So everyone is losing their minds. They're absolutely losing their minds over it. And it's so crazy to me because I know people, people I consider to be good friends who definitely do not get it. And that's not their fault. It's not their fault. I don't blame them because they don't get it. But they see everything that's going on and they're like, oh my gosh, we're getting rid of Medicaid. We're cutting out food stamps for people. We're not going to be able to see a doctor anymore. By the time I get older, there's going to be no Social Security. It's all gone. Trump's cutting all of it out. We're going to have to pay these sky high prices for medication. Adoptions will be over. The pets won't be taken care of. No money going to, these different animal sanctuaries. And none of that's true. That's just flat out hysteria. And what's even funnier, I've noticed a trend lately. All of the uncovering, I don't know who started this trend. I think it has something to do probably with social media or with paid actors that are on social media, because I've noticed lately, and Democrats and liberals are really grasping onto it. I'm seeing a lot of posts lately when one of us posts about all of the mass spending that's taking place, all of the fraud that has taken place. There's always somebody to come around and say, oh, that's been debunked. That's not true. That's all lies. It's been, and you see all the liberals and Democrats flock to that person's comments. They're, oh, yeah, none of that really happened. Elon Musk is lying. He can't prove any of this. All these theories have been debunked. There was no wasteful spending. And every single day, I take a little time out to research that. And I looked again last night. I couldn't sleep. I was up looking. I'm like, where has any of this been debunked? I even checked the fact-checking websites. There is nothing, absolutely nothing to say any of this has been debunked. It is a bunch of lies. It's propaganda because they have nothing else. They literally have nothing else. There's no way they can possibly defend all of the wasteful spending that's going on, some of it flat out treasonous. So their only comeback, their only fight that they have left in them is to say that it's just not true. And they know, it's psychology. They know there's a certain percentage of the population who will agree, and they'll say, oh, yeah, you're right. People don't have to look for themselves. They'll just agree because that idea seems more logical to them. It's more logical to some people, especially people who have trusted our government this entire time, for them to say, oh, yeah, that's been debunked. That's not true. It's all just lies. Elon Musk is making it up. Donald Trump is making it up. Oh, this department used a different system that Elon Musk is just not aware of. Trust me, I've heard it all, and it's not true. It is absolutely not true. It has not been debunked so far. All of the fraud that we've seen take place, all of the treason we've seen take place, all of these different numbers that are coming out from the Department of Government Efficiency, they're all true. I have seen no evidence to disprove it otherwise. And that is exactly why that a lot of these people being fired, they have no case. Now, right now, there are some judges who are interfering, and there are different people who have come around and said, hey, I shouldn't have lost my job. I shouldn't have been fired. I'm going to sue the Trump administration, and I'm going to sue the government and all this other stuff. And some of these judges are upholding, and they're saying temporarily, just temporarily, they're saying, okay, we're going to stop your firing right now till we can get to the bottom of this. But really, these people have no case. Under their watch, massive fraud has occurred so far in every single department, every branch of the government. And we've not even gotten very far yet. We think of how much further we need to go. And Democrats, they have not a leg to stand on. All of it's going to come to light, every last bit of it. Allison says every American taxpayer should be mad as hell. You got that right. And and we are closer and closer to getting that big payment, aren't we? Everyone's starting to talk about it. The Trump administration is trying to figure out how best to pay Americans back. And I'm almost certain that you're going to see some type of payback. I really am. I think we're getting closer all the time. Even Elon Musk, he's been talking about how the government owes the American taxpayer. I don't know. Again, I've talked about this several times. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm going to guess it's going to be based on people who have paid taxes. But at the same time, this fraud and massive overspending has affected even Americans that haven't filed tax returns, people who don't have enough money or don't make any money. Even the homeless people, the veterans, all these different people out on the streets who are not paying taxes right now, they're still affected by the government overspending and by the fraud. That's money that could be coming to them that's not. I don't know what it looks like. I could see maybe increase Social Security wages. I don't know if you call that wages, but of course, people who are living on Social Security, people I think deserve to have more Social Security. The pot would be a lot bigger for Social Security had we not had all of this fraud and wasteful spending. Like I said yesterday, all of the millions to billions of dollars that have been spent overseas to organize gangs who are stealing from the Social Security Administration. We find out now that people in other countries are receiving Medicaid and Medicare from the United States government, even though they're in another country. It is absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Jay says savings should be used to pay down the deficit. Then we have Elon Musk yesterday, once again, talking about bankruptcy, that, the United States, that we're a bankrupt country, and that if it weren't for the Department of Doge, of course, we'd be in some tough times right now, heading into some tough times. And I think that's true. We've talked even long before Donald Trump became inaugurated. We talked about how the United States was heading towards bankruptcy. And then, of course, Biden changed the definition, of course, of what a recession and what a depression looked like. I think that times have been tough. All this overspending has really hurt us. And we've got a lot to make up for. And it's going to take some time to do that. But in the meantime, again, that's your money. It's your money. Jay says, however, think about how much better our education infrastructure would have been had we been using our tax dollars there. Yeah, exactly. Our tax dollars, especially all the money we've sent in taxes, just think if that money really went to the Department of Education, or I should say not to the Department of Education, but to the teachers. Teachers are buying their own school supplies, while all of these millions of dollars through the Department of Education are going to the most ridiculous things. But if you're a teacher, you have to go out and buy your own school supplies. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Think if all this money went into our healthcare or into our education, we wouldn't be some of the dumbest people on the planet right now. And I'm sorry to say that. I know that probably upset some people, but trust me, some of that's true. So anyway, I want to talk very quickly before Colonel Joe Adams joins us about the war against the cartels. We're going to talk about some other stuff in a little bit. I've got to be out of here by 8:55. I've got another very important phone call today. I think I have one tomorrow too. I need to start scheduling those a little bit later, but for 9 a.m. So yesterday I have 1 minute to jump off here and grab my phone call. Thankfully I made it. Jay says our district can't even fill all the vacancies. I know, and that's exactly right. We are hundreds of thousands of people short, workers short in so many different areas. And then we have all of these people working in the government who really aren't even working. A lot of them haven't even been to work in months, but they're still getting paid their regular salary. And they're working from home. Who knows? There's no oversight. Who knows really what they're doing? And in the meantime, look at our law enforcement, short, across the country as a whole, by many thousands, probably, I'm sure, over 100,000. And Allison, we rank number 40 in education and number 1 on how much per student we spend. Allison, that's an excellent comment. You're absolutely right. And I always feel bad, when I talk about Americans being on the lower end of the education spectrum, but it's true. And the government has done that with intent. That just didn't just happen. That's with intent. That's with intent. So, we talked yesterday about Mexico. We've been talking about it for quite some time now, about the war on cartels. And, it's heating up. It's going to continue to escalate, particularly because a lot of Americans don't even know this is going on. They really just have no idea. People are not watching the news, and you're not going to hear a lot of this on the news anyway. You're going to have to be watching podcasts like mine or somewhere else. They're starting to talk a little bit about it on the news. The news is always so far behind everyone else, because they've got so much fact checking to do and so much red tape and bureaucracy, you know what I'm saying, to get through. And so, you know what, we've been talking about it for a long time now, haven't we? Because we saw it coming. The writing, you have to read between the lines and again, see the writing on the wall to see what's going on. So yesterday I played a video of you guys about the Army and how we have our Army troop. I think it was the 7th Armed Forces, 7th Infantry or something like that, going into Mexico and training the Mexican Army how to fight against the cartels. Now we have the Green Berets, the Marines, over Special Forces, of course, over in Mexico. But here's the thing. Mexico did not only authorize our Special Operations Forces to enter into Mexico to train their military and their police officers. They have given us the green flag to come in and to actually fight the cartels. So we are not there just to train their military. We have the authority to actually fight the cartels. And we had Reaper drones going into Mexico for quite some time now, which we've talked about a couple weeks ago, mapping out where all of the cartels are, where their main structures are, where are they making the fentanyl, where are they, keeping their arms. And so we have a good idea where all of their structures are. And that's going to make things a lot easier to jump in and fight with the cartels. And we're going to do it. Just yesterday, the Mexican government arrested one of the Sinaloa cartel members. He was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. They were, of course, arrested him in Mexico. Humberto Rivera. They call him El Vejan. And they're going to extradite him, I can't even talk today, to the United States on drug trafficking charges. So these things are already underway. It's already happening. Because think about it, by the time anyone hears about it, it's already happening. And so this is already taking place. Our special forces are already there. Those Reaper missions took place. I don't remember when we talked about it, but we talked about it right as it was happening. I don't know, what was that, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? It's already underway. These missions are already underway. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Rob. And Allison, blow their drug labs. That's right. And before Colonel Joe Adams joins us here at 8 a.m., I'm going to play a quick video for you. Now, this is about 2 minutes long. This is a cartel member who's going to talk about his role in trafficking drugs and trafficking people across our border. And it's going to show the corruption that has taken place along our southern border. And, I know that these Border Patrol agents, these are good people. They're there for the right reason. I'm not going to say a couple of them haven't, been somehow corrupted, but I also know that under the Obama administration, even more so under the Biden administration, who would have ever thought that Biden's administration would be so far more corrupt than the Obama administration? Obama actually was pretty tough, on the southern border to some degree. At first, he tried anyway, until he got sued by the ACLU. And so I'm going to play this video for you, then we'll talk about it for a minute before Colonel Joe Adams joins us.
$500 and I put it you in El Paso, Texas.
How many people do you think you've taken over?
It's probably in 3,000. A month ago, with Biden is in the president, and the president is not too much problem. Right. And then I'm gonna 50,000, 10,000 for cross the border.
$10,000 or $15,000.
There's Biden, yeah, they price for each people. Yeah, everybody knows where is the tunnels, or everything. But I never crossed for the tunnels. I crossed for the border. They know me, the U.S. Customs, they know me, the immigration. So do you think all the time, the whole world says Mexico's corrupt? No. So he was being said, the U.S. American is the same like me. It's a human. They need money. Everybody needs money. Them and me. And this is the reason when I receiving the money, I'm split it. Okay? This is for you, this is for me, this is for you, this is for me. My connection in the United States, he checked everything. Right. I'm only just cross, that's it. For this I'm receiving in the Mexican airport, Nicaraguan, 2 Nicaragua people. I don't know who is it, I don't know nothing, but they have money. The guy from immigration, United States immigration, they say, hey, pick it up in your airport in Mexico and bring me these guys to the bridge. I want to cross the bridge, no problem, everybody knows. And I want to put these guys in the checkpoint to Albuquerque. Okay, whatever. I want to put it over there. Everybody knows. Okay, cross.
How much do you think you made that?
No, a long time ago for millions.
Millions. Did you see that? Millions. Now think about what this man said. Think about what he said. He's talking about U.S. immigration, the Department of Immigration, asking him to pick up 2 Nicaraguans at a Mexico airport and to bring them into a checkpoint, which means that the U.S. Immigration Department knew these 2 people, these Nicaraguans, were going to land in Mexico at the airport. And they tasked this guy with bringing them into our country illegally. Now, why would that happen? Would it be a special operation that's going on? Who are these Nicaraguans? And if it's happening then, how many times has this happened? And I'm sure Colonel Joe Adams, he's going to join us in just a moment. I am sure he can weigh in on that. Is this an operation by the United States government? Are these people who are coming here to give us intel? Are they using the cartel members to sneak them across our border, technically legally if they've asked them to do it, but yet illegally because they're going around, a legal port of entry. They're taking them, he just said, to a checkpoint in Albuquerque, so New Mexico. So what exactly is happening here? And we all know that just like we, the United States government, we formed ISIS. ISIS is us. We formed Al-Qaeda. We formed, I could go down the line, probably Hezbollah in the beginning. And, all of these different terror organizations, the Taliban, like Colonel Adams and I have talked about several times, we built the caves that the Taliban hides in. Remember Osama bin Laden hiding in the caves, which in fact, he was actually in Pakistan, but we thought he might be in the caves. And of course, those were caves we built. We are really the number one terrorist. Our government under the Democrat regime, we have been the number one terrorist. Now, of course, that's changing. And when you have change, things get a little rough. Things get a little rough. And so, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of people crossing our border illegally, and these cartels are bringing in millions of dollars in trafficking humans, trafficking drugs. And that's all stopping. In fact, a lot of these immigration centers are closing down because no one's crossing the border and there's no one staying at these immigration centers because right now our border is closed. We're not even accepting applications any longer. Right now, there's a complete hold on asylum applications. Our border is closed. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot of restructuring to do. Our country is closed. So don't even think about coming here illegally because we are not open for business. And we're going to get to these cartels. There again, when we have our active duty Marines, we have special operations forces, the Army. We're talking about Green Berets. And Colonel Joe Adams, I know will have a lot to weigh on. We're going to bring him in here and see what he's got to say, because I'll tell you, things are heating up, and they're going to heat up very quick, very quick. Oh, I don't see him there. I guess he'll be there here in just a moment. We'll throw him on with us. But yeah, and then things are heating up on the other end too. And I said this yesterday. We're isolating ourselves. We're going to be on an island. Canada is not happy with us right now, which I don't really care what Trudeau thinks. We have Europe, who is very quickly becoming our enemy, not our friend, our enemy. We're buddying up to Russia. Russia is going to become our new friend. I think we're going to make buddies with China next. We need their rare earth minerals. We're going to find that Zelensky lied to us. Zelensky lied to us. They do not have rare earth minerals in Ukraine. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. That's why Zelensky didn't sign that little paper, because it was all a lie. We went back and did a geological survey, and it turns out that Ukraine doesn't have rare earth minerals. So therefore, well, guess what? No, Ukraine, you're no longer of any use to us without your rare earth minerals. So we'll see how that goes and what direction that turns. But in the meantime, after we talk to Colonel Joe Adams, I'm going to play a little video clip from J.D. Vance, and I can tell that he's thinking in the same direction. We know that we are isolating ourselves away from Europe. They are not our friends. Absolutely not our friends. Buddying up to Russia, buddying up to China, these things are going to happen. And they have to happen because we need the resources that they have. China owns the majority of rare earth minerals. And, we're going to be fighting. We're going to have a lot of foreign issues on our hands in the very near future. I see Colonel Joe Adams popping in. We're going to join him, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Let's see here. Oh, I lost him. I'll get him. I just hit the wrong button. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Thank you for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
I didn't hear the first part of your show because I was out doing my manly chores, i.e., shoveling the snow. So
that's okay. You know what? I'll give you a brief recap. What we were talking about. I played a short video of a cartel member talking about how he's made millions of dollars, bringing people illegally into our country. And he was talking about how he received a call from U.S. Immigration asking him, he's on their speed dial, asking him to pick up 2 Nicaraguans at the Mexico airport, and bring them into a checkpoint in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They allowed him into our country. He's not legal. He's a cartel member, and they allowed him to bring these 2 Nicaraguans into our country. We have no idea why, and so we were talking about that. We're talking about how we now have Marines, Army, Special Forces, Green Berets, and so on in Mexico, with not only Mexico giving us, the United States, the authorization to train their military and train their police officers, but also to legally be in their country to fight the cartels. And then we touch base a little bit about the Reaper drones going into Mexico, which we talked about before a couple weeks ago, and how they mapped out all of the cartel locations, all of the fentanyl warehouses, arms warehouses, and so on. So that's what you missed.
Yeah, we've had what sounds like Vietnam all over again. We've had target acquisition people in there for quite a while to set up some of the laser guided systems they're going to need to strike the cartel. As far as those 2 characters from Nicaragua, that smells like CIA. The CIA can be anybody at any time. So I really seriously doubt that the CBP had anything to do with that. But that was, I would put my money on that was CIA. And what they wanted those people for, I have no idea, probably for some information or to infiltrate another association. We talked a little bit, I think last week about, anyway, I'm going to clear up something. The FBI put out a report several months ago, and the question came up in the report about who's the most dangerous people in Mexico. And of course, everybody right away says the cartel. And the FBI says that's not true. It's the Russian mafia that's now set up facilities in Mexico City. So a few decades ago, they came to the United States and they wanted to get into the Caribbean routes. And so they set up what they call the Trinational Organization for the Russian Mafia down in Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. So that way they could capture both sides oceans, and because they're huge. People don't understand this, but you know, if you pick the top 5 things that the Russian mafia are involved in, number 2 or number 3 is human trafficking. I mean, they're huge in human trafficking. There's more slaves on this planet today than there ever was in the history of the planet. So, amongst other things. So, what the Russian mafia MO is the fact that they like to go and set up facilities in countries with weak politics, weak political structure, weak governments. And of course, Mexico is that. So they actually moved that trinational organization from South America into Mexico City. So according to the FBI, that they're the most dangerous threat we have in Mexico is not the cartel, it's the Russian mafia. But you know, the cartels work for the Russian mafia. And anyway, so that's, people don't really realize the influence down there that the Russian mafia has, not to be connected with, of course, the Russian government. Anyway, so they're there. Like I say,
How,
we've been.
can I ask you real quick? How do you think the Russian mafia will play into us having our Marines and Army Special Ops there in Mexico?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. It's because they're like the quiet people, but they're very, very powerful. That's a really good question, and I really haven't come to that conclusion yet. But they will not confront a military operation at all. They work around the chaos. No, they're embedded in the Mexican government now, and so it actually could strengthen them by eliminating some of the competition. Anyway, that's a really good question. I haven't really come to the conclusion yet of how the Russian mafia is going to fit into this whole thing, but we know they're there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I hadn't really heard a lot about that. You know, and I know yesterday you kind of popped into the comment line and you talked about how some of this reminded you of Vietnam and how Vietnam began. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, we always go in as military advisors. That's our way in. And we went in the early 60s in Vietnam. We went in strictly as military advisors, not participating in combat. So it's just a way of getting in. That's all. That's also a way for the host government to allow us in by asking us for help, and it's the same pattern. You just don't go into it. You don't like World War II. We attacked, the Axis powers, but on these quiet wars, we have to get in as military advisors first, and eventually, take over. I mean, what are we going to teach the Mexican police down there? We've already taught them. We've trained them. They've even trained down in Bolivia. I mean, there's nothing we can teach them. It's just, like I say, it's just a political front. The fact that we're allowed to be there. And by doing that, it makes the government doesn't lose face down there saying, oh, yeah, well, they're just here to help us, right? No, Trump told them we're coming in either way.
That's right.
And we talked about this weeks ago, the fact that the only way to be successful against this cartel, we have to go inside.
Right. That's right.
And guess what? We're inside. So we'll see what happens.
We are inside. And, Colonel Adams, I couldn't agree with you more. I knew that we've talked about this, like you said, many times, but Colonel, we knew that Donald Trump, we were going to send our troops into Mexico regardless. It didn't matter if the Mexican government agreed or did not agree. It was going to happen either way. I absolutely agree with you that they agreed to save face because they knew we were going to do it one way or the other. Now, this is just plan A. Plan A is for our troops to come in, our special operations, and to train, i.e. the military, train their police. But like you just said, that's going to be a completely failed situation because, these people have been dealing with the cartels their entire lives. They already know how to deal with them. We're not going to teach them anything they don't already know. But the government and the military and some of the police departments have bought right. We're going to be moving very quickly into Plan B. In Plan B, of course, will be our military directly fighting the cartels with or without the support of Mexico.
Yeah, I think there was some video you showed the other day. It might have been you, or it might have been on the news. I don't know. When you saw the Osprey,
yeah, that was yesterday. Yep.
Well, that's not 7th Special Forces. That's the Marines. The Marines only use that. There might have been
Yeah,
some sort.
I was wondering about that because, I know the seventh unit is there, but I was wondering about that video too. Now, of course, obviously I don't make that video, but I do know the Marines are definitely there. We have Green Berets there. We have several different branches, of course, of the U.S. military, special operations type force. I haven't heard it publicly stated, but I know we have some SEALs there, particularly working in the communication area and keeping an eye out on things that are going on. And I think it's a much bigger operation than what our government right now would lead us to believe, because I think we as Americans have learned that they do it first and then tell us later.
Yeah, well, they've always put a spin to it, no matter what it is. The SEALs have been going into Mexico and doing things for quite some time. I spoke to a former SEAL months and months and months ago, and he was having some problems with the PTSD and all that. And because when the SEALs went into a particular spot in Mexico and emancipated a compound that was being held, cartel were holding children for sale to distribute across the planet, and the SEAL teams went in and killed everybody. Now, I didn't see that on TV, and I didn't see it in the newspapers. I didn't see it anywhere else, but he sat there play by play, and he said the problem he was having with it, some of the guards at the camp were holding the children were teenagers. And somehow he was able to identify one of the men that he killed was a 14-year-old boy who was one of the guards at the facilities. And he was having a problem with that. And I tried to talk him through it. It didn't matter what age. They point a gun at you, you need to kill them. So anyway, the SEAL team's been involved in this stuff for a long time. It just never makes the papers. SEALs don't like to draw attention to themselves. Understand that SEALs basically are two operatives, and one is hostage rescue or assassinations. So anyway, but they've been there for quite a while. In fact, a lot of the logistics and stuff that they're bringing in now is based on how the SEALs knew where they were going to need. So we've been running intel down there for quite a while. So
yeah, it makes sense. And I know a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, is a Navy SEAL, and which I think you know him, and I have not talked to him about any of this. I need to reach out to him. But like you said, they operate very quietly. He will tell me some things, but not most things. Most operations, he's a commander, and most of the operations they absolutely cannot and will not discuss. Nothing classified, of course.
It doesn't do any good. I mean, in fact, I even asked this gentleman. I said, I'm around you all the time, and you're just now telling me this. He goes, well, you never asked. So anyway.
Exactly. It's a tough situation. And what I worry about, I think most Americans don't know about this situation yet. And when they find out about exactly what's happening just across our southern border, they're going to start asking, well, how is that going to spill into the U.S.? Are we going to see these skirmishes break out here in our own country, knowing that the cartels have cells? The cartel members are all over the country in every community.
And they're armed.
Yeah.
Heavily armed. So, yeah, I think that the more disturbance the military causes, or the U.S. military causes in Mexico for the cartels, I think you're going to see some uprisings up here and some strike backs. I mean, basically, a terrorist playbook. So anyway, and they'll become heroes in Mexico. Anyway, it's very convoluted. To tell you how people don't understand how huge the human trafficking is. We all talk about it, but you don't really ever see it. And this goes back to 2000. See, in 2016, when I was still working with Border Patrol, I got some people contacted me, and the NRA convention was coming up and stuff, and I got nominated for the Civilian Medal of Honor. Now, everybody that saw that thought that that's because of my combat or whatever, and that's not true. The reason I got nominated for the medal was the fact that my Project Blue Light team, which was our cover name when we out there in Arizona, working out of Tucson, Project Blue Light, my team was directly responsible for emancipating and rescuing over 1,000 women and children. Now, you didn't see that in the papers either, because we run what they call a ghost operation. Our best mission, our perfect mission, was never to be seen or heard. just do the job, gather the intelligence, call in Border Patrol. But the only time that Project Blue Light would vary from their mission statement is if we saw the presence of women and children. And at that time, then we would take it upon ourselves and through whatever unconventional methods necessary, and we took the kids and the ladies from the cartel by any way, shape, or form we had to. So that's why I was nominated for the Civilian Medal of Honor, not because of combat. But that's how rampant it was then. Rampant. And some of those groups coming over, there's 90 women and 90 children, if not more. I remember picking up a little tennis shoe in the desert in the middle of nowhere. The tennis shoe probably had to be about that big. Now, why would you have a baby out there? A baby shoe, a little pink baby shoe. I still got the picture. Tragic. But anyway, most of the things we did were black ops. Nobody knew we were there. We just did a job, and Border Patrol. Well, put it this way, I don't like to talk about that because it seemed like the Border Patrol was unprofessional. But back, especially during the Obama administration, the Border Patrol only caught about 20% of the people they spotted. 20%. So that means 80% either made it to the United States or got picked up later. When Blue Light was involved in a mission, that percentage went to about 98%. But we operated differently than conventional means. Just put it that way. So instead of waiting for the enemy to come to us, we took it to the enemy and was able to be very successful for 12 years. We flew under the radar. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, we've heard recently that under Joe Biden, 30 million illegals entered our country. And as you just stated, we have that 20% rule where we only know about the 20% who actually are apprehended at the border. So does that mean that 30 million is only 20% of the people that crossed here illegally?
No.
How did they come up with that number?
Well, the numbers of apprehensions went up because the number of people coming across went up. No, Border Patrol, like our borders right now are the most secure they've been in decades. I was down there during the Bush administration. He was basically an open border president, because if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And he really didn't worry too much about the border. Of course, that's before the terrorist strikes and the threats of. And then by 2010. I got privy to information about the amount of weapons that the cartel was bringing into this country. Landmines, hand grenades, machine guns, 50 calibers. And I questioned, what is this all about? And the statement from the cartels that were interrogated was the fact that, oh, by the way, there's a lot more cartel down in Guantanamo than you know about. They've been down there for quite a while. We was shocked at the fact that how many weapons were coming across. And the reason that information service, the Mexican government was complaining to Obama that how the weapon smuggling into Mexico was so rampant. Well, that's not really true. That was a cover story, because actually they were bringing weapons up here, and most of those weapons haven't been recovered. And when I asked, when I talked to the CIA, I said, why are they bringing so many weapons north? He said, because they're going to be doing a turf war. Once they get it set up here, Sinaloa, and all the different cartels, they are their own separate entity, and they've got turf battles. That's why they go at it. There's a lot more fighting going on in Mexico we know about between the cartel parties for power. So, and I can only tell you what I was told: the fact that the reason they brought all the weapons is for a turf war in the United States between the cartels. Now, what a convenient time for that to break out when we got military troops now in Mexico.
No question. And Colonel Adams, if I can ask you a question, something that's been on my mind. Now, with Donald Trump in charge, we know right now illegal border crossings are pretty much null. There's nothing going on right now on our southern border. And we're not even taking applications any longer for asylum for a period of time. So what's going to happen when the highway of illegal drugs and illegal weapons is no longer bringing weapons and drugs across the United States. So now we have a lot of people in this country who are used to obtaining their weapons from cartel members, a lot of people who get their drugs from cartel members, and now we've cut the funnel. So that means we've got a lot of people in this country who are going to be short on weapons, who are going to be short on fentanyl and other drugs. What exactly are these people going to do? Are they going to break into my house and try to take my weapons? How are they going to obtain, drugs at this point? Because we know the fentanyl is coming across our borders, our northern border from China, our southern border, of course, from Mexico. So where do we go from there? How are we going to deal with this situation?
Well, first of all, China's not on our northern border. I caught you.
Well, no, they're not, but that's how they transport their fentanyl in through our northern border.
Well, that was why the big push during the Biden administration. I mean, they're pretty much set. So probably 1,000 times more weapons came across during the Biden administration than any other administration ever. So no, they're fairly well equipped. They knew these things that's happening now was inevitable. And so it's just like, the preppers putting their caches together for bad times. The cartels done the same thing. So no, they're very, very well armed. They're not going to be breaking in.
Well, the cartels are armed, but I'm talking about the people the cartels give weapons to. So let's say you have your average gang member in the city of St. Louis. He gets arrested or he's in a police chase. He throws out his gun or his guns are confiscated or something happens to his weapons. And he needs to obtain more weapons. Now, of course, right now, he's probably got a buddy that's got some extras laying around. But eventually, that supply is going to run out. And the more we step up fighting crime and can continue confiscating these weapons off of our streets, then these gangbangers and people who rely on the cartels for their drugs and for their weapons, there's going to be a pretty darn short supply.
Well, that's where urban America comes in. When I was meeting with the sheriff a few weeks ago, we talked about there's one thing we have home invasions, believe it or not, and robberies here in Franklin County at random, and it's all the same profile. It's people from St. Louis that come out here, and when they talk to these people, when we do catch them and interrogate them, there's one thing that stands out in common of why would you come all the way from St. Louis to break into a rural home in Franklin County? And the question across the board was, the answer across the board was guns. We know that people in urban America are more likely to have guns than anybody else. And that's why they've moved their gang operations at times into urban America. So, most people out here in Franklin County don't even have house alarms. And I was shocked when I found that out. When I bought the ranch out here, going on 4 years ago, it's a beautiful home, quite large. And I said, you don't have a burglar alarm? No. And I said, why wouldn't you have an alarm out here in the middle of nowhere? Well, we never thought we needed one. And that seems to be the mentality. I mean, I've talked to people in the Guard all the time when they come to our home and see what I've done for security wise. And I don't know how many people make the comment, hell, we don't even lock our doors at night. So it's a different mentality.
Which makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to go through a wake-up call. It's not going to be like this forever. So the gangs will move their crime element out to urban America to soft targets. So,
right, which makes sense. It does make sense. I know that we have to cut the supply of fentanyl coming into our country. We have to cut the supply of illegal weapons coming in our country. And I just see a point in time where once we've stopped that flow, there's going to be a lot of people. We've got a lot of people in this country addicted to drugs who are not going to be able to get their hands on drugs. Now, Jay on the comment line says they will find a way. And maybe that's true. Maybe the cartels will still find a way. Yeah. I think eliminating the cartels is going to be a very difficult task.
Yeah, the only way you're going to be able to totally alleviate that is the fact that people stop doing drugs. So you're never going to stop it. It's physically, just like you're never going to totally seal the border. Now we're making an effort to do it, but they could do it, but the amount of energy it would take in the budget to seal the border, I don't think the government's willing to spend at this time. Maybe
we got all those government cuts with Doge.
Yeah, really. Been watching that all week. That's pretty comical. I love the people that yell the loudest, usually the guiltiest. We know who the guilty are. Can you imagine being against uh, investigating corruption and crime and taking your tax dollars? The Democrats have turned into a freak show. I mean, they really have. I sit there and watch. I watch CNN and MSNBC more than now than ever. I just can't believe the things they're coming up with. They're blaming the price of eggs now on Donald Trump.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
Everything's Donald Trump's fault.
Yeah,
he's been in office for 30 days, but it's all his fault.
Yeah, the plane crash in Ontario is Donald Trump's fault.
Everything is.
And before, when I would say urban America, I mean, actually rural America. Anyway, so not urban.
I knew what you meant. What's funny is I didn't even realize it, but I knew exactly what you meant.
Yes. Anyway, but that's okay. I mean, it'll be a wake-up call, but for a while that's going to be a problem. And especially, well, if we go through another Ferguson and they get away with it, that's going to spread out into, vastly the urban area of St. Louis and end up in the rural areas. So anyway, that's the new world we live in. That's just the way it is. If you don't adapt, then I guess you're just going to sit down and die. But maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll get lucky, and the bad guys will come to my house first, and I'll just kind of thin their herd. So
I'll send them your way.
Yeah. Give them my address.
I hope they stay away from my house. Colonel Adams, I don't know if you can comment on this or not. It's going to be something I'm going to be talking about a little bit more, later on, but towards the end of the show. But is our relationship and how it's shifting away from Europe? Europe, of course, was always our ally, but they were the ally of the deep state. They're not the ally of Donald Trump. So therefore, I feel like Europe right now is our greatest threat. And here we're starting to buddy up to Russia and China because we need their resources.
Oh, well, so does Europe. But, there's a lot of political uneasiness and disruption in Europe. I mean, you can start with Germany. All the politicians and their government, except Poland and Czechoslovakia, everybody else is trying to make sides and make their money and do the politics. They need to get away from that. The NATO countries over there are still prepared for. They're still talking about World War III. When's the last time we spoke about World War III? We'll go to Europe and they're talking about it. Poland's refused to send troops to Ukraine. They wanted to set up some kind of unilateral thing through NATO for peacekeeping forces. Of course, Britain said they would go if we provided. We're not going to.
Oh yeah, we foot the bill.
Yeah. Poland and Czech said, "Hey, that's your problem. We're not going to take our troops off the border to protect your border. Protect your own border." So anyway, that's where they're at. But it's all you can't keep the politics out of it. Simple as that. You can't keep. And as far as Zelensky getting pissed off because Trump went and talked to Putin first. Yeah. I mean, first of all, you wouldn't put two enemies in the same room on the same day at the same time. No, that's not the way you do it. He goes to Putin and said, "Okay, what's it going to take to get out of this thing?" All right. Then of course he's going to go back to Zelensky and say, "Okay, this is what they want. What are you willing to do?" So Henry Kissinger was great at that. They had a term for that. What was that? About he would go from one to the other back and forth on a daily basis and settle things, but he didn't put them both in the same room. Now eventually they'll be in the same room when they finally agree. So, but that's the Democrats making a deal about, and Zelensky is the puppet of the Democrats, And when Trump said, "Well, you started the war," well, we're the ones who convinced Zelensky not to sign a treaty and let Russian troops in. And when he said you started the war, you can interpret that a different way also. He told Zelensky, "Hey, your Eastern extremists, your military, are killing my Russian citizens. Knock it off."
That's right. For 6 months, he warned them.
Yeah, if you continue, we're coming in. So was that an excuse to come in? Okay. But he warned Zelensky, knock it off. So, actually, to Ukraine, the Eastern extremists are still, they hate Zelensky. I'm surprised he's still alive.
I'm surprised too. I call him Little Tutu Man, and he's very upset right now because he's not getting invited to the meetings with the big boys. And, Zelensky is going to be replaced. I don't know if you've heard, but the deal, Russia has they have their plan. They have a deal that they want. They want the 30% of, they're already in the Luhansk and Donetsk regions, but they want the 30% that they don't yet control. They want Visa, MasterCard to come back to Russia. They're wanting the United States to withdraw from the Baltic, our troops from the Baltic region, which I believe Trump has agreed to. And they want to make sure that Ukraine is not any type of alliance with any major bloc, or, of course, not NATO, not any other country. And they want Zelensky to be replaced. They want to hold an election because they know right now his approval rating is like literally 4%. So Russia has a lot of demands now, and I really do think that we're going to meet those demands.
Well, Russia's on the Black Sea. That's what they wanted to begin with. So they've got the territory. So I think that Trump can pull this off because they're both sides are tired. It's too bad it happened, but look no further than the Biden administration. They had a deal. And I told this before, and this makes total sense. I mean, we have military bases all over this world. And Russia says, how come we can't have a military base and strengthen Ukraine and protect our backside? We've got to have a warm water port 24/7, and that's the Black Sea. And that's what the whole thing's about. It comes down to that. Mother Russia.
And Russia will get their way.
Get me started on Mother Russia. Yeah. So I'm going to comment. Most people don't know that I was at one time in my career, I was an avid pilot. And all I had to go by was that videotape of that plane crash, where the plane broke off.
The Delta crash?
Yeah. So I was sitting here watching it with my wife, and I looked at, and I was watching the thing, and I played it over and over and over again. And I go, wow. Well, it looked, so there was two conflicting stories. The tower tells them there's a strong crosswind, and somebody else chimes in, no, there was no crosswind or nothing like that. Well, I wasn't there, so I have a video to watch. But as from a pilot's perspective, the plane came in too hard and hit. And when he hit that right rear landing gear as hard as he did, that sheared off, collapsed the wind, and that's what flipped the airplane. It looks like if I had to judge if I had to make a judgment from the video, and it looked like the front end of the plane just before it landed crabbed a little bit to the left. When I say crab, that's the crosswind. You counter for that. And in fixed wings aircraft and propeller aircrafts, you basically ride the pedals and counter. It's called crabbing into the wind. So there was a little bit of crabbing to the left, which means the wind was coming from the right, but he hit way too hard. So if I had to judge what the problem with that crash was, I'd have to say pilot error. But that's just by watching the video. And I've been there, done that. I've had some hard landings, very hard landings, but I guess it was a good landing because everybody walked away from it. So anyway.
But that's been happening. I'm sure it's just coincidence, but Vince Neil, the singer, his plane had that crash, and I think Vince Neil was not on it. His girlfriend was seriously injured, and her friend was injured. It killed the pilot, of course, and I don't know if it was a co-pilot. There was another injury. However, when you watch that video, a friend of mine who owns several aircraft messaged me, and he said that's a really hard landing. It broke the wheel off, and so therefore, when he landed really hard, the wheel, the landing gear broke off on one side, and clearly that put him out of balance. He ended up crashing into a parked plane, killed the pilot. And I'm wondering, is there anything weird going on with all of these crashes, or is it just coincidental?
Coincidental. No, the problem with the landing, you can land hard like that, but you have to land on both sets of landing gears. When that total impact was on one side and one landing gear, it was a kiss of death. It's not designed. It can't be designed for that. I mean, the nose was still up. He didn't nose in. The first reports where he nosed in. He didn't nose in.
Yeah, there is for the Delta flight that turned over a couple times in Toronto. I saw some video of it yesterday that I hadn't seen before. You've probably seen it, where you can tell it is very windy. I mean, that plane is like rocking back and forth. You could tell it was really fighting the wind as it came in for a landing, and it looked pretty darn treacherous. But now this, obviously, clearly, Colonel Adams, I am not a pilot. I have absolutely zero knowledge of anything to do with piloting or air traffic control. But it seems like there's been so many weird things yesterday. I just watched a video yesterday where there was a plane that landed on a runway without any clearance at all. There were two vehicles on the runway at the time, and the pilot said, "Hey, I've been calling air traffic control. Nobody answers me. We have to land." And it's just like, seems like there's so many weird things going on, so many weird anomalies that are taking place. And I don't know if it's just because there's more media coverage. Maybe these things always happen. But I don't know. I just feel like there's something strange going on. Some people, of course, out on the fringes, which I consider myself one of those people, on the fringe sometimes, talk about, the polar shift. Is that affecting navigation, in some way? There's a lot of weird things going on, in my opinion.
No, it's just well, look at the number of flights that fly
Oh, of
every
course.
day. Well,
This is just a tiny percentage.
it's a matter of numbers. If you only had 5 flights a day and you lost one plane every 3 years, and nobody would be talking about it. But no, we're talking about thousands and thousands of flights
Right.
every day. It's a machine that made the fly. He didn't give us God didn't give us. So now when you against the nature, things are going to happen. So anyway, I've been in my aircraft when I flew overseas. I've been in such incredibly horrible weather and trying to land that and the plane was shaking so bad and crabbing so bad that I couldn't even get to my flaps. So I had to land full speed because I couldn't even reach the console to get to my flaps to slow her down. I had to go in full speed. It happens. It happens.
Of course. And that's just it. Things happen. I guess to me, it just seems like there's so much of it lately. But again, according to how many flights are in the air at any given time, it is such a small percentage.
Anyway, I'm not flying. Lately, I'm not flying, so I don't care.
I won't be flying anywhere. I would be terrified right now to fly. That's my personal thought.
If I was flying the aircraft, I might be all right. But I have to second thought. And they always said this is true. I don't know if it's public information. Anyway, the safest place on an airplane is the first seats right behind the cockpit, because human nature. Maybe this is a pilot joke, but
I think that's a myth.
well, now think about this. You're going in on an aircraft, right? Your instinct before you hit would be to pull up. So they always said the safest place to fly is right behind the pilot, because if he's going to go in, he's going to pull up. So anyway,
but you know what? It's always the tail section that survives. Remember, I can't recall which crash it was, but most recently, just in the past month or so, maybe 6 weeks, there was a crash, pretty significant, crash with a lot of deaths, and the only people that survived were in that last row of seats in the tail of the aircraft.
That was a smaller plane, though, right? Yeah, I saw that.
I think it had about 100 passengers, 80 passengers, something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I can't speak for other pilots' skills. Anyway, so what else you got?
Oh, that's pretty much it for me. Do you want to weigh in on some of these declassifications that we're going to see coming about? Because we have Florida Rep Anna Paulina Luna heading this department, and I'm going to tell you, Colonel Adams, some of the members on this it's called the Declassification and Transparency Task Force. So these are the folks on the task force, and you're going to recognize some of these names. Of course, Anna Paulina Luna, Florida. We have South Carolina, Nancy Mace. We have Tennessee, Tim Burchett. We have Colorado, of course, Lauren Boebert. Missouri, Eric Burleson. I don't even know who that is. Arizona, Eli Crane, who is a SEAL, former SEAL. And Texas, Brandon, I can't see Brandon Gill. So these folks are going to work on the declassification task force. And some of the things they're going to be jumping into is the moon landing real? Have we really, viewed Mars? Do we really have a rover on Mars? what really happened to JFK. They're going to dive into all of these different topics, UFOs, and are they going to give us real information, or is this just one of those things where they're going to gloss over things?
I don't know. I hope it's not shiny object, distraction. Most of those people I never heard of. Hey, that guy from Missouri, I never even heard of him. Who's that?
I don't know if I've heard of him either. Eli Crane, I know. Lauren Boebert, of course. Anna Paulina Luna. Eli Crane, I really like him. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he's a fantastic person. So I really think these people are on this task force for the right reasons, because they want transparency. They want people to know what's really going on. They're going to tackle the Epstein list. Anna Paulina Luna has said she wants every American to know every single name on that Epstein list. So this is the group that's going to be tasked with bringing that information to the American people. All of the things we've always wondered, and the last thing I want to talk to you about, Colonel Joe Adams, is the gold at Fort Knox. Do we really have any gold? I know you know.
That's a touchy subject.
I'm going to say no, we don't, and we haven't for a long time. What do you think?
That's very touchy. I don't want to answer that.
How are we going to back our currency in gold if we don't have any gold?
Good question.
Maybe that's why we haven't already.
Better question is, where'd the gold go? So anyway, I have some personal information on that, but I want to stay away from that, because I want the gold standard back. And now, did we talk about last week about why Trump's pushing hard on the JFK files?
I don't remember, but you can refresh us one way or the other.
We talked about that.
You talked about it, yeah.
I did.
But talk about it again.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure, because I've spoke about this to several people. The reason Trump wants to release the JFK files, kind of a life insurance policy. JFK was killed by the deep state. CIA was behind it.
At the order of Lyndon B. Johnson.
That I can't confirm, but Lyndon definitely played into the scheme of things with the deep state. The first thing Lyndon Johnson did after he was sworn in was pull the warrant for the removal of the Fed and go to the gold standard. And that was the final straw that got JFK killed. The civil rights things, Bay of Pigs, but that's what did it. Now, if the JFK files are totally released, and that's in there, which it is, then President Trump's telling us that if they get me, it's because of this, if he does that. And they know he wants to get rid of the Fed. He hasn't spoken about it recently, but he wants to get rid of the Fed. Now, I don't know if I spoke about this before, but they actually have in the files an audio tape recorded by JFK in his closing days that he left, and it surfaced and been verified. And the fact that he says, I know they're coming for me. So he knew he was going to get hit.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
And that's why Trump wants the JFK files brought forward.
Well, I hope we find out.
And we're talking about the deep state. It talks about deep state in those documents. This is 1963 we're talking about.
Oh yeah, it's been around for a very long time. Longer. I always tell people, Colonel Adams, it's been far longer than I've been on this planet, and I think I don't even know when it all began. I used to think it began with JFK's assassination. That's when the deep state took over, and I still kind of feel that way to some degree. But we know they were still operating probably long before that. And JFK, was our Trump.
I think like post World War II. Anyway, hey, great show. See you next Wednesday. And one thing. Hey, Allison, look that guy up from Missouri and tell us who he is. Above all, remember, everybody should join the Washington Guard. When you join the Guard, you're never alone. And also, do me a favor and Support our president, and let's make America great again.
I love that. Look at that gigantic America, make America
Well,
great again
the true
hat.
story,
That's insane.
the true story is this is the only hat I ever bought that actually fit my big head. So, see you later.
I love it.
Love you to death. Thanks, people.
Thank you, Colonel Joe Adams. That is Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard that joined us today. So happy to have him. And yes, I will eventually get my little button turned here. And yes, reach out to the Washington Guard because I'll tell you, they have a solution for everything. A solution for everything. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my buttons here. I'm trying. Here we go. And somebody commented on the comment line. Let's see, Burleson, Eric Burleson's from Springfield and Big MAGA. You know, I probably have heard of him before. Right now, it just doesn't ring a bell. I'm going to do some looking into him. And Joe Fry, the guitar guy, says, any thinking person already knows the moon landing was fake. All you have to do is take a good look at the lunar spaceship made with aluminum foil and curtain rods. And, you know, there was a movie about that called, I think it was called Fly Me to the Moon. I can't discuss movies because that's the business that I'm in. And we're, you know, absolutely forbidden to discuss movies. But that film is about the moon landing and some of the fakery that went on. And Joe Fry, the guitar guy, says, bye, Colonel. Yes, goodbye to Colonel Joe Adams. So happy he joined us today, giving us a lot of insight on a lot of topics, which we certainly do appreciate and love. And, you know, one thing I want to add, I talked about this before. Most of you weren't with me at the beginning of the show, that if you go back after the show's over, you can't go back now, but after the show is over, go back to the beginning and watch this little video I played at the beginning of the show. And it was about the moon. And it talked about how the moon is really just a big ball of plasma, a plasmoid. And it's pretty interesting little video. And for those of you that didn't hear what I said earlier, on Friday, we're going to talk a lot about the moon landing, what really happened. Do we really have a rover on Mars? We're going to be talking about all of these things. I got lots of video clips to play for you guys, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because of the big cuts coming to NASA. And we know that Donald Trump is expected to reduce NASA's workforce by about, I believe, 10%. Something along those lines, 10% of their workforce. And you know, they have that giant pool where they do all the practicing for their space walks. I don't know if it's a joke or not, but I'm told those were the people the first to go. So we'll see. Right now, there's so much going on. It's really hard to know, you know, what's a joke and what is not a joke. And Jay says, not with the craters, it isn't. You know, to me, you can take a telescope, you can these days take your iPhone, you can look up at the moon and you can make out a lot of detail in the moon. The moon does not look like plasma or a plasmoid to me, but we're going to talk about it on Friday and kind of get to the bottom of where that theory came from, because plasmoids do certainly exist, and there are moon-sized orbs of plasma out into different galaxies. We know this. And it is pretty interesting because we've seen so many orbs that are allegedly appear to be plasmoids. And we know that our scientists can create plasmoids, which is also interesting, which is just fusion energy. Linda says, had a senior moment, missed the first part. We'll listen to replay. Yeah, it's just the first. I played that little clip. Then earlier in the show, we played a clip from a cartel member talking about how he worked with U.S. immigration to bring 2 Nicaraguans from the airport in Mexico into Albuquerque, New Mexico, and how he's made millions of dollars on trafficking people, illegals, into our country. And I don't think when we start going after the cartels and shutting down these border crossings and these cartels, they're not going to be making millions of dollars. And really, this is one man that made millions of dollars. There's multi-billions of dollars to be made, you know, in the cartels. And obviously, we're putting a halt to their business, and they're not going to be very happy about that. And I don't know what this war is going to look like between our special forces, our military, you know, over in Mexico, but there will be a war. It's coming, you know, that's technically already underway. You know, right now, the Mexican government going out and arresting the main leaders of the cartels, which kind of, I I'm not going to say it's going to end the cartel because you arrest their main leader. The Sinaloa cartel leader was arrested yesterday in Mexico. He's going to be deported or extradited, I should say. I said deported, extradited back to the United States to face charges on drug trafficking. And of course, they're going to go after the leaders first. However, we all know that these cartels are used to losing their leaders. There's somebody waiting in the wings, just like a true terror organization. There's somebody waiting in the wings. And so we'll see about that. And, something I was talking about, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I want to talk a little bit again about Europe and some of the comments that was made by J.D. Vance and about Europe becoming, he considers talking about them being one of the largest states of, what did he call it? Islamism. I never can get my words right. So I'm gonna play that video for you here in a few minutes. But we're going to be talking more about Mexico and about the war against cartels. Of course, now that we know we have the Navy SEALs, we have Marines, we have the Army, all inside of Mexico right now, with full permission from the Mexican government, not only train their military and some police officers, but also to literally fight the cartels. Mexico has given us permission to fight the cartels. And even as Colonel Joe Adams reiterated, we need, technically, since we've designated the cartels as a terror organization, we do not need Mexico's permission to go in and fight the cartels. It's nice to have their permission, but we didn't need it. And just like Colonel Joe Adams says, it saves face for Mexico to say, okay, the United States just came in, they enter, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. Well, we're doing it legally. I don't have much time, but we need to do it with as little collateral damage as possible. That's what we need to do. I'm going to play this quick clip of J.D. Vance here talking about Europe, because Europe, I think, is going to be our next biggest threat. We're buddying up to China, buddying up to Russia. We're going to create new alliances with Russia and China. Europe they're not our friend. They are absolutely not our friend. They are a friend of the deep state. And as somebody said on the comment line, they are far too woke to remain our ally under Donald Trump. And they've been having summit after summit after summit over in Europe, all these European countries. And I'm not going to play the video today, but I saw the leader, I can't recall what organization he's with, but crying on the stage, talking about, the United States under Donald Trump. And it was right after J.D. Vance's speech. So I'm going to show you just a clip of his speech right here. And this just freaked them all out.
I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But
pretty funny, isn't it? Pretty funny stuff, because you know what? The writing is on the wall. J.D. Vance talking about it very openly and clearly that these people are not our friends, and they are definitely not our friends. And Jay says China and Russia are not our friends either. Well, I'll tell you, China and Russia have caused us far less harm than Europe has. Far less harm. Europe is the epitome of wokeness. They really are. They're far ahead of us when it comes to censorship and woke agenda and so on. And we know that they're being taken over by these Islamic extreme groups. Go over to London, go to Paris. You can see for yourself. And it's really unfortunate that that's happening. There's a lot of good people who do not deserve for their countries to have to go through this change that's taking place over in Europe. And I think that China and Russia right now are going to be our allies, because we all have something in common that we need. And of course, Donald Trump is hitting China hard. He's going to tariff the chips. Obviously they're a big chip manufacturer for vehicles, 25% tariffs on chips. So we'll see how that works out. That's going to be pretty crazy. And you're already probably paying sky high prices for a new vehicle. But, I think that we'll come to good terms with Russia and with China. I think we have to. But we're not going to be part of BRICS. We're going to be on our own little island, and we're going to be separate. I think eventually we'll withdraw from NATO, because those people, they're not our friends. And we're just going to be on this little island alone, and we're going to do our best, and we're going to become self-sustaining. We're going to make sure it works out. Allison says Europe has been very overrun by radical Islamic extremism. Yes, yes, they have. All right, guys. Well, I have to run. As you know, I've got a work phone call at 9 a.m. Yesterday, I had 1 minute to shut down the show and jump on the phone. So I got to give myself a couple extra minutes today. But either way, we got a lot to talk about coming up. We're going to talk a little bit more tomorrow about a little bit more about health and how our food is poisoning us. I'm going to jump into that a little bit. I'm going to talk about this asteroid. You know what? I'll talk about that very quickly right now, and we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. So take this for what you want, but they're saying the chances of this, they call it the city killer asteroid. It is called 2024 YR4. That's the name of the asteroid. They said the chances of it hitting hitting Earth and having a major impact is going to be 1 in 32. 1 in 32. And NASA just gave an update yesterday, and they increased the chances of it hitting the Earth by 3.1%. So we're gonna talk about that. I don't know that I believe it. It could be just a big distraction. We'll find out on Friday. I don't even know what day today is. On Friday, we're going to talk about the moon landing. We're going to talk about NASA a little bit further, facing 10% cut in their workforce. And what's NASA really up to? You know, we're certainly going to find out how much fraud is going to be found in NASA. I think quite a bit, just like everybody else. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.